Hello, gentlemen. I wanted to discuss possible theory for whatever 31 Cypress trees is talking about. Kind of talk about all the septarians or whatever, what the goal of the Grandmaster might be, all that kind of good stuff, right? Mostly because I noticed throughout playing the games. Right now I'm on chapter 2 in Cold Steel 3, so I don't have all the information. But I noticed throughout playing the games, especially in the Crossbell arc, the very obvious influences from, Western esoteric traditions that this game series takes. Um, and I think I'm definitely on the right track with kind of my interpretation of what this book means, 31 Cypress Trees, which the most surprising part is that it was written in Sky first chapter in Zeiss, which is kind of wild. If they really been planning this out from Sky first chapter. But 31 Cypress Trees, the good farmer Sheprot, I guess. Um, we're gonna assume that Sheprot, he's a farmer. He's kind of like shepherd. So we're gonna think of any type of religious figures or mystical figures that might be shepherds, as for who Sheprot might be. You know, because a farmer named Sheprot is definitely a shepherd. I mean, he can't be a shepherd. And with kind of how he shepherds these trees throughout this book, it really makes a lot of sense in that kind of context. I mean, I'm going to be relating this to esotericism, so it all doesn't make any sense anyways. And it's all, synthesized and synchronized and mixed together. The alchemists, they just take all the potions and they throw them in a pot and brew it together, and then we got a new form of esotericism. That's how it always works anyway. But anyways, yeah, the good farmer Sheprot planted 5 cypress trees in his garden. The good farmer Sheprot dunged the earth carefully about them. The good farmer Sheprot suffered a year of pestilence. The good farmer Sheprot watched as all his trees withered away. The good farmer Sheprot planted another 7 cypress trees. The good farmer Sheprot dunged the earth about them even more. The good farmer Sheprot suffered a year of bitter winter. The good farmer Sheprot watched as all his trees snapped in the biting cold. The good farmer Sheprot planted still another 9 cypress trees. The good farmer Sheprot dunged the earth about them furthermore. The good farmer Sheprot saw his trees grow into a great canopy. The good farmer Sheprot watched as all his trees broke under the weight of a great snow. The good farmer Sheprot planted yet another 11 cypress trees. The good farmer Sheprot plucked those which were frail and cast them into the fire. The good farmer Sheprot suffered another year of pestilence and great winter. The good farmer Sheprot watched as his last tree grew into a magnificent fir. The good farmer Sheprot, in order to confect a single grand cypress, the good farmer Sheprot planted 32 cypress trees. The good farmer Sheprot, with his loving goodness for them all, the good farmer Sheprot brought 31 cypress trees to the depths of ruination. It seems very clear to me. Maybe I'm biased because I study. Well, I don't study this stuff so much, but I look into it here and there. It might be biased, but it's very obvious to me that Sheprot is a shepherd who obviously shepherds his trees. The trees might be a metaphor for humankind, for example. And what's it called? And the good farmer Sheprot, he's got some end goal, right? He's got like some culmination that he's trying to get towards, right? Trial and error. He's trying to, shepherd these things. He's trying to do good, right? And he's trying to make a magnificent fur. right? So he's got this end goal of the magnificent fur. Like when he gets that fur, he stops, he's done for. He's like, finally, I got this. And so, if the trees are a metaphor for humankind or the world or this or that, right? Kind of, you would say that the Sheprat is shepherding humankind, and as he's shepherding humankind, we can see in these first two passages that, humankind is pretty much getting wiped out. They suffered a year of pestilence, and they all withered away, or they suffered a year of biting winter, and they all died. All the trees. So, as Sheprat is shepherding all of humankind, they are being led into ruination, like the last passage says, right? But it says that Sheprat has a loving goodness for them all, right? So there's nothing malicious going on with Sheprat. He's a decent guy, at least he thinks he is, but he has some end goal, some grand idea of this magnificent fur that he's trying to get to, and no matter what he does in his shepherding of humankind, he'll do whatever it takes to get there, right? At the end of the day, it's all justified once he gets that magnificent fur. Right. I'm gonna relate the magnificent fur to ideas such as reaching godhood, or returning to Eden, or things like that. Manifesting the divine spark in man into its end creation, and becoming one with God, or seeing the mind of God, or returning humanity to Eden, or something along those lines, right? Grow humanity into their perfect final form, essentially, right? So the cypress trees is humanity, the magnificent fur is the final form of humanity, which in this case is godhood, or returning to Eden, going to the pleroma, something along those lines, right? It's as I said, it's all esotericism, so it's I'm doing a lot of syncretism here in order to kind of fit it all together. Right, I'm going to relate Sheprat to the Grand Master of Ouroboros, and I want to relate it to another character, kind of. I wanted to relate it to Poimandres, which is that character who the first book in the Corpus Hermeticum is named after, the book that describes the Hermetics, creation myth, their cosmology, and whatever they got going on. They got like the seven rulers, the seven planets, right, all that stuff. But Poimandres could be interpreted as either God or the aspect of God that that emanated first, right? So he's I don't even know if he's begotten or non-begotten. Who knows? But he's that first aspect of God, let's say, nous, or mind, or I guess nous. And I'm relating this character to the Grand Master. Another thing that's interesting, which kind of fits it all together, is that Poimandres is usually known as the shepherd of man. So if we say that Sheprat is a shepherd, right, and the cypress trees is mankind, so Sheprat is shepherding mankind, right? Sheprat is, and we say that Sheprat is the Grandmaster, who is nous, or mind. Mind is the only aeon capable of seeing the mind of God, right? And that means that nous would know how to return all the humans to, you know, godhood or whatever. So he's the only one who knows the propator or the monad or the father or whatever you want to call him, right? He's the only one who's able to know him because he's mind, right? It's a good way to say that, you know, through mind or through knowing, through gnosis, through self-knowledge, you can reach godhood or something along those lines, right? But if we relate Sheprot to Nous, we say that Sheprot knows God. That would give a reason why he is, you know, having mankind suffer through all these trials, you know, the trial and error in order to reach the magnificent fur. A magnificent fur being, you know, the final form of mankind, godhood, or whatever you want to call it, right? And because Nous has seen the mind of God, he's the only one who knows God. He knows what the end goal should be, and because he knows what the end goal should be, he can justify it, you know, all these trials and tribulations that he puts humankind through in order to get to this magnificent fur end goal, right? So because Nous is trying to return humankind to you know, the propator or whatever, the father or whatever, right? And the father is unknowable except for by Nous. Nous would know that what's it called, that the father lacks distinction, or that the father is that which is without distinction, right? So if you remove all distinction, then you reach the father, because you know, distinction is you know, distinction only exists because of the various emanations of God, right? For example, the aeons in Gnosticism, or the seven rulers, the seven planets that make up the heavens. You know, obviously the aeons that make up the pleroma, right? So, and they were all emanated from God, right? So if were you to bring them all together, you know, coagulate them all together, right? Like an alchemist would throw potions in a pot. Or would an alchemist do that? I guess I'd be a witch. But whatever. You know, if you were to coagulate them all together, then they would lack distinction. Because they lack distinction, they would be God, right? So, you know, all those aeons or the planets, they emanated or were created by God or the Father, right? And were you to remove all those distinctions or coagulate them together, you would be able to get to the Father. The Gnostics, for example, had an idea of how to do this, and it wasn't just the Gnostics. I mean, the ascetics before them that also wanted to achieve gnosis, right? And gnosis has been an idea for quite a long time, but the secret absolute knowing, or rather to achieve godhood, which is, you know, essentially what secret absolute knowing is. The method they would use to achieve that is asceticism. And why would they use asceticism? Because God is unknowable, and God is undistinct or indistinct. You have to make yourself indistinct, and you have to remove yourself from the distinctions of the material world in order to reach godhood, or to see the mind of God, to know God, to have a relationship with God, any of that type of stuff. And asceticism, to deny, you know, bodily pleasures, right? You want to, you want to get yourself a sweet treat, and you decide, oh no, because I'm too good for that, right? I don't want to be taken in by the pleasures of the material world, because I am transcendent of the material world, and I'm actually going to reach godhood, or whatever. That's how the Gnostic ascetics, I imagine, they thought. But by destroying your material will and your material desires, and destroying your your material body like that, your body would be regenerated, and after this regeneration, it would lack the material desires that you destroyed previously, right? But you're still not perfected. So in order to perfect yourself even more, what you got to do is destroy even more desires. And as you destroy these desires and these wants and your material will, right, the only thing that's left is the divine spark that's inside of you, right? So when you just destroy your material body, material desires, material wants, you're left indistinct, and you're left with the divine spark that's left in all men, as is, almost, it's almost universal among these Western esoteric traditions, is the divine spark that's left in all men. So yeah, that's how you reach godhood, according to the traditional ascetics. I'm going to relate that to this passage by saying that, for example, if you want to reach Eden, or if you want to reach, the plane of the where God resides, where all the aeons reside, the pleroma, the plane that's outside of the firmament. If you want to peek your head outside of the firmament, well, you gotta lose all distinctions. Right. So what do? You do the cycle of destruction and rebirth and trial and error that in the end must, because it lacks all distinction, must emerge God. Right. So it's not only saying that you'll do this ascetic kind of ritual or whatever, where you just destroy your desires. It also claims that because the end result is non-distinct, it must be God. Like through that, just logically speaking, it must be God. So you can kind of justify the cycle of destruction and rebirth by saying that the end result must be God, right? And so you can justify, just as Sheprat does here in this passage, you can justify the destruction and replanting of these trees by saying that, because these trees are destroyed and regrown over and over, by the end, they lack distinction, and must, by the fact that all these trees have, survived all these trials and tribulations and chaos, must emerge the magnificent fir. Or you could say that, if you relate it to humankind, that were you to destroy humankind, allow it to rebuild, it would build itself back better. And when you destroy it again, it would build itself back better again. And you destroy it again, it will build itself back better again, because that is the nature of humans. And so going through that cycle enough times, you would be able to have the perfect man emerge, because of the fact that necessarily, having destroyed all the imperfect parts of humanity, only the perfect part of humanity emerges. And so you reach, God-man or whatever. Maybe Nietzsche's Übermensch. That would be funny. I don't know if Nietzsche was a Gnostic or whatever. Let's read the passage again, or the book again. All right, so first he has 5 cypress trees, then he has 7, then 9, and then 11 cypress trees. And in order to confect a single grand cypress, the good farmer Sheprat planted 32 cypress trees. The good farmer Sheprat with his loving goodness for them all, brought 31 cypress trees to the depth of ruination. So it says that Sheprat has a loving goodness for them all, right? So clearly this was not, out of malice. We could also say that the destruction of all these 31 trees were justified because necessarily at the end would have to emerge the perfect tree. So that's why it brought 31 cypress trees to the depth of ruination. That's why that was necessary. What's it called? What I find interesting is that in these first couple passages, the good farmer Sheprat, he dungs the earth about them, so he cares for the trees. But by the time when he plants 11 trees, he plucks those which are frail and casts them into the fire, because he understands that, necessarily they're not going to be, whatever. For example, if you were an ascetic, whatever desires that you're still loosely holding on to, you have to pluck off and cast into the fire, so that your whole body may not be cast into hell. Which I don't know how heretical it is, quoting the Bible in the midst of this examination of this book. I had some thoughts I had written down on this somewhere. Let me double check them. Let's see here. Something you could say is that perhaps in the first 3 sections of this passage, perhaps the Grandmaster was unaware of the what's it called? The cruelty of the material world, or the cruelty of mankind, or whatever, or the imperfectness of mankind, or the fact, perhaps the Grandmaster was even unaware of the fact that there was a higher God. But you could see, it's almost as if on this passage right here, after the Grandmaster, plants 11 cypress trees, she realizes the cruelty of the world. And so, and that's why she decides to pluck the trees which are frail and cast them into the fire, essentially. So it's coming to that realization. That's kind of how all of these Western esoteric traditions start out, by saying that something about the material world is imperfect, right? Imagine you're some hermetic wizard, or some weird esoteric sage or something like that, and you really think highly of yourself. You're going to look around of the world, and you're going to say, man, this place sucks. This world really sucks. Were I to make this world in my image, this world would be absolutely amazing. And so that's kind of what the motivation comes to, is saying that this world sucks, this world is evil, or it's unfair, or it's imperfect, and it must be destroyed, so that out of it can come the perfect world. But yeah, let me read some of this. Yeah, so this wasn't really a separate series of planting of trees. It was, at the end of the day, it was a cycle or a process wherein we had this end goal of the magnificent fir. I'm going to relate some of these ideas to the Ouroboros, which luckily we have an image of the Ouroboros right here on the wiki, which is quite useful. It's the snake that eats its own tail. It's used in a lot of esoteric symbolism and theology, but one of the things it can, or actually two of the things that it can symbolize is, first, we can say that it symbolizes, what is it called? Let me I had it somewhere, what I was thinking about, written down. Okay, let's get back on topic. So one of the things that the classic Ouroboros symbol, or the snake eating its tail, can symbolize is presupposing the end in the beginning, or that is to say, to embark upon a process in which you have already seen the end result, right? And so you can say now, here's kind of the second part of the cycle, is the snake that eats its own tail, right? You can say that, you know, if I look up Ouroboros right now, let me just copy it because I don't know how to spell it. Yeah, there we go. The eternal cycle of destruction and rebirth. So same with the ascetics, same with the you know, the Gnostics, the guys who want to destroy things so that it lacks distinction and then you reach godhood. But because you presuppose the end in the beginning, to presuppose, you know, you can to presuppose the end means to foresee the end, to understand that the end is God, right? So if you're trying to reach God, then you can embark upon this cycle of destruction and rebirth because, you know, you've already presupposed the end in the beginning, right? And so that cycle of destruction and rebirth can be justified because you've already seen the end result, right? The what's it called, the mind of God, or to reach the pleroma, or whatever you're trying to achieve. What's it called? So it's kind of a method of circular logic. You can firstly justify you can justify the end, or you can justify the means that you use, right? The cycle of destruction and rebirth. You can justify these means that you used to reach that end of godhood. You can justify it with the end result, which is going to be godhood, right? So you can justify the means by the end, right? But you can also justify the end by the means, which is weird. So I'm going to say that again. You can justify the end result by the means. So you can say that because the end result, because the means used to get there is the cycle of destruction and rebirth, which naturally would create something that lacks all distinction. The thing that lacks all distinction is God. So that you can say that the means justify the end, and the end actually justifies the means. So the because you're reaching God, the means that you use there to get there are justified. So you can go and you can destroy civilization, and you can, kill people, and you can be a horrible person if you want to be, and it's all fine because you're trying to reach God, right? But necessarily you have to be reaching God, because this cycle of destruction and rebirth that you're using, your means necessarily get to God. So it's a cycle of circular logic. I can do whatever I want because I'm going to reach God. And doing these things necessarily have to reach God. So, like, I don't have to justify, that the end result is God, because the means I'm using to get there necessarily gets to God. So the end justifies the means, and the means justifies the end. Which is quite interesting idea about the Ouroboros. Back here, you can relate that exact same idea to this book. You can say that the means justifies the end, right? So because these cypress trees are destroyed and regrown over and over again, necessarily the end result has to be the magnificent fir. And because the end result is the magnificent fir, you can justify destroying all these cypress trees over and over again. I'm not an evil person for destroying all these cypress trees, because I'm trying to reach the magnificent fir. Right? So you do have a loving goodness for them all, right? Because you have this a grand end result. That's a lot of theology and occult wisdom that I just bestowed upon everybody listening to this. But let's kind of say what this might mean in the context of trails. So Sheprat is Nous, or mind, who is the only one who is able to see, according to the Valentinians. And I guess if you relate the Nous, or the Nous in Hermeticism or in the Poimandres, to the Nous in the Gnostic theologies, you could say both of them. Because Valentinus, in Valentinian Gnosticism, he says that the Nous is the only one who can see God. He's the first begotten, and because he's the first begotten, all the other aeons have to go to him in order to see God, right? So he can he can presume or presuppose the end of the beginning, because he knows what God looks like, right? Even though God is unknowable. So other people can't, right? If you're a non-Gnostic or non-wizard, or you don't have any of the secret esoteric knowledge, then you can't do this, right? You can't justify your actions, right? Because you don't know what the mind of God is, right? Unless you become an ascetic and you go through this cycle of destruction and rebirth, then maybe you do know what God looks like. Honestly, I'm rambling so much during this. This is going to be completely incoherent. I imagine that, like, people who are actually really into this esoteric stuff, like, this is how they ramble to themselves, but they think it's cool instead of kind of lame, which is why my opinion on it. But yeah, Sheprat is Nous, or the Grandmaster. Grandmaster is the shepherd of humanity, and is trying to bring humanity to, for example, either godhood or return to Eden, right? And so all the actions of Ouroboros, and where they destroy, all these civilizations, they create, all these wars, and they fight. They unleash the archisms, or whatever they're called, the robots, on the world in order to wreak havoc. And they they basically pull the puppet strings behind the scenes. All of that can be justified because the Grandmaster is reaching godhood, or gonna ascend man to godhood, or ascend man to Eden, right? And you could say that Eden is pre-Great Collapse, right? And perhaps the obsession with the orbital technology in the Ouroboros, where they got all these ions, which is another funny thing. The ions, which They borrowed their power from the Septarians or whatever. I'm only in chapter 2 of Cold Steel 3, so they were talking about that in Cold Steel 3. But in Zero, or no, not Zero, Azure, it was a lot more obvious what they were doing. They were borrowing power from the Septarians, the Ions, right? So all this obsession with orbital technology comes from the fact that they're trying to destroy mankind so that mankind can regrow and make itself better through orbital technology. And this orbital technology will reunite mankind with Eden, bring them to, pre-Great Collapse, ancient Zemuria civilization where everything was, nice and peachy. And you could also say, here's kind of another theory, that the 7 Septarians of the of Eidos is the various emanations of Eidos. Maybe represents the 7 planets, or the... Man, I think I was talking about this in the beginning of the video, but yeah, the 7 planets, or the aeons of Gnosticism, and by the Ouroboros collecting all these Septarians together, because these are the various emanations of Eidos, by mashing them and coagulating them all together, right, they're going to lack distinction, and then you'll reach Eidos, or you'll have the power of Eidos. Or perhaps by coagulating them all together, right, like the ancient Zemuria, they had all the Septarians, and they were gifted to them, right, by Eidos, and they used them for their own pleasure and gain and what have you, right? So maybe if you get them all together, you can return to pre-Great Collapse, and you can power all your ions with the Septarians, and the Septarians will power all the ancient orbital technology. I mean, they got like in Sky FC and Sky SC, the Ouroboros was using the Gospels and whatever. I'm pretty sure they were. I haven't played those games in a little while. Pretty sure they were. The Ouroboros was remanufacturing those Gospels, so they were definitely looking into the ancient Sumerian orbital technology. So that's kind of I kind of what I think this book is describing. It's describing the Grand Master putting humanity through a series of trials and tribulations, so that at the end of it, humanity will persevere, she'll collect all the Septarians, and then coagulate them all together, and then we're going to return to pre-Great Collapse, ancient Zemurian civilization, where everything is going to be nice and perfect. We're going to return to the Garden of Eden. And it's not going to be like Dieter Croix in Azure, where he was trying to return to his own, he was trying to make Crossbell into the Garden of Eden, and that one dog or whatever, Zeit, he called it like the fake paradise or whatever, because Dieter wasn't interested in actually reaching godhood. He wanted to live under a demiurge. He wanted to imprison himself in a false reality, essentially. And he used the power of Kia and whatever to do all that type of stuff. This series is kind of wild. I wonder if anybody's gonna understand this video, but maybe I'll post it, and I'll re-update it and try to make it more coherent after I play through all the games. I guess you can watch this on 2x speed, but I mean, this is the end of the video. I don't even know what I'm rambling on about anyways. I'm gonna go continue to play Cold Steel 3. It's actually pretty fun. I just got to the part where I got Elisa and Macias in my party and whatever. I like the the craft that gives me insight from Elisa, because I've been missing the Cold Steel 2 evasion tanking. Honestly, the Cold Steel 3 combat is way better than Cold Steel 2, only because I cheesed the Cold Steel 2 combat so hard that it was unfun. I was doing 260, 270, 300k damage with Fee on the bosses. It was, I mean, I like 2-hit McBurn. It was unfortunate. Game could have been way funner if I didn't cheese it. But the bosses are a lot harder in Cold Steel 3 because I'm playing on hard difficulty. You actually got to use the orders or whatever, the battle orders that give you the combat advantages and whatever. Anyways, guys, I'll judge the reaction of this video in the comment section if anybody wants me to talk about this stuff more or to clarify it, or if anybody wants to give some input on this type of stuff.